So today, myself and Alan Milway are going to be showing you the 3 different types of rides you can go on your e-bike to maximise your fitness. Now later in this video we're going to be defining 3 different types of ride on your e-bike which are ultimately going to make you much fitter. But first of all I'm going to talk to Alan. Now Alan, you've got an e-bike and she's going to surprise quite a few people, right?
Yeah, I guess as a fitness coach you might think that I'd maybe almost be anti-e-bikes or thinking they're for lazy people, but far from it.
Yeah, I hear that you were sort of pulled into it by the likes of Ollie Wilkins and Brendan Fairclough.
Yeah, Brendan rides a fair bit of e-bikes. Him and Ollie ride a fair bit, and I had a perception in my head that they were really for recovery rides and the boys were taking it easy when they're on their e-bike, but far from it.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things where Brendan was like, you just got to come down and experience it. Let's actually get out on an e-bike ride. Yeah. And you need to see how we're using them and how we're using them as a training tool.
Because I think there is a perception amongst people that you buy an e-bike and there's going to be a lessening of fitness. You can actually become lazier and slower on a bike.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that's not true?
No,
right?
not at all. It's just how you use it. I mean, you can use it to make your life easier and therefore you can go slower, but for a lot of people it actually helps improve their fitness. And it allows you to sort of stay at the intensities that are most appropriate. And for a lot of people who don't ride very much, simply the hills around them are probably too difficult for them to get up with,
exactly.
Without blowing a gasket.
Do you know what I see a lot of people, maybe particularly my age, they go and buy an £8,000 carbon mountain bike. They're maybe a little bit overweight, they're carrying a bit more fat than normal, and they're putting a huge amount of stress on their legs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you can easily just look at the heart rates and see the effort that they're putting in, with a heart rate monitor. And when you do that, you realise that they're sort of 85–90% of max, just trying to get themselves up to the top of that hill. So it makes them tired very quickly.
So you can't sustain those kind of rides.
You can't sustain it, and they're not actually really the best heart rates to be trying to, if you look at it as like a fat burner or trying to make yourself more efficient and fitter, you want to be sitting at slightly lower heart rates than that. And that's where the e-bike comes in. It allows you to get up those climbs at really steady, maintainable heart rates.
So in other words, pro riders are using e-bikes as a training tool. And let's not forget that Alan, is a trainer of these pro riders. What kind of ride are you going on with, like the likes of Ollie and Brendan?
Well, for those guys, the way they're using the bike is really to cover a load more ground, a lot more technical riding. So we can maybe do 11 or 12 downhill runs, downhill trails in a ride in that same 2 hours. And then between those trails, we can go right at our threshold level. And we can keep quite a consistent hard pace, so it's far from easy.
So really what you're saying is you can cover loads of different zones of training on an e-bike.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly that.
So today we're going to be looking at the different types of riding you can do on your e-bike to maximise the time spent out on the trails.
Come on, Jonesy. Come on, boy.
Oh, Al, seriously.
How was that?
Genuinely, I cannot sustain that. It feels like I'm totally going into the red.
Yeah, you are, because you're on the heart rate. Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, the thing is, we were doing that in eco, and that's the beauty of these things, because what we can do is we can just change up to trail to give you a bit more assistance, and therefore we can actually control the effort level, not the gradient of the hill.
So what type of workout are we doing there?
So this is an anaerobic threshold effort, and what we're trying to do is it's these sorts of efforts that really improve your mountain bike performance. Right. But as you can tell, if you go over that, there's a big energy cost.
So Al, what exactly is involved in an aerobic threshold ride then? So it's not going to be like that.
Not all the time. Basically, this is your sort of classic interval effort. Yeah. So you're mixing periods of pretty high intensity work, but not absolutely flat out, with periods of rest. So we might have a 5 to 7 minute climb, and we probably try and equal out the rest between. And on these things, it's brilliant because the mountains and hills aren't always 7 minutes up and nice and flat between the next one.
So it's a combination of using your heart rate monitor and the mode button on your e-bike to keep it at that constant
Exactly.
effort.
So for you, we know that you're about 155 beats a minute, and that's where you need to be. We can check it on the heart rate monitor, and again with the modes, you can adjust the mode to keep you in that sweet spot.
Sounds so simple, but at the same time, it shows that e-biking can be hard work at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely. Lampkin versus Tony Bow.
Oh my God,
That's
absolutely love riding e-bikes, right?
Brilliant.
I love riding e-bikes. I mean, would you be able to get up there?
Well, this is the thing. You just wouldn't even get up there on a normal bike, and we've just come up there and we're hardly breathing. So it's it's incredible.
The other thing is, even if you could have got up there, you would no way have been able to sustain a climb like that more, if it goes on longer up the hill, right?
No, you'd be absolutely redlining, and that's where these things really come into play.
So this is a subject I really want to cover with you, Al, is fat burning. Now, to me, I'm really confused. I see loads of videos which say you're going to ride at a low intensity on maybe boring ground. At the same time, I see these guys who are doing warming up and then doing really high intensity efforts. What's it all about?
Right, okay, so you're sort of looking at two different angles really. One of them is, are you trying to use fat as a fuel? And the other one, are you trying to stimulate your metabolism? Are you trying to actually get that sort of engine firing up to burn more calories? And that the high intensity interval training is where you sort of stimulate that metabolism. But you can't do it for very long. Like as we talked about before, if we set a really hard intensity circuit or anything like that, you're done within maybe 10-15 minutes.
Right.
Long, sustained, relatively steady efforts, that is where you really will use fat as a fuel.
Right.
And on a mountain bike, it's actually quite difficult to stay in that zone because you've got a steep hill and you sort of, you go out of that.
And I guess, as you just showed there, we can go up a technical ride and we can keep that heart rate quite low.
And that's where the sort of combination of the gearing on the bikes and the heart rate as your sort of feedback let you know if you're trying to structure a ride, you're not limited by the terrain. Because I'd never suggest anyone try and do this.
Do you think, I think a heart rate monitor is quite a good tool for the job as well, right, when it comes to all this training?
Yeah, I think heart rates are really, really useful because with some relatively basic fitness testing and sort of assessment, you can get a specific heart rate zone from which to work to.
One of the great things about e-bikes is you can get a load of technical riding done without burning too much energy pushing or riding up the hill. As you can see from Al, he's getting a load of laps done. Now the good thing is you can learn loads of things about line choice, technique and your speed on the bike, as I said, without consuming too much energy on the way up. So there you go, e-bikes and fitness, and I genuinely believe that contrary to common perception, e-bike riding actually means an increase in fitness rather than a decrease. Do you think it's big talk, Al?
Well, I think that e-bikes, they're a great tool for the job really, and I think that with an e-bike it allows you to maximise the terrain you're riding in and not have that terrain dictate, the effort you've got to work at.
That's interesting, yeah. Maximise and be all being dictated by the terrain. That's really key actually. So today we've covered 3 different rides which will improve your fitness. Can we quickly go through them?
Yeah, sure.
We had, the 3 were fat burning, anaerobic threshold and the performance aspect. So let's go through these quickly. Fat burning.
So fat burning, traditionally, you're looking at steady state rides, and on a mountain bike, that can actually be quite difficult to do because of the terrain. And with the e-bike, we can, as you saw, we're able to get out some pretty steep stuff, but not having to put too much effort into that, you go too hard.
But obviously you cannot do that alone. You need to mix that in with some anaerobic threshold riding.
Yeah,
right?
So the anaerobic work, that's essentially your sort of interval training. And with the e-bike, it allows you to really monitor how hard you're going to go. So you're not sort of blowing past that red line. You can keep that in the right sweet spot. Yeah.
And of course, finally, there's the performance aspect to riding your e-bike. The laps of technical downhill sections or enduro sections where you're looking at your line choice, your technique and speed and such things such as that. Al, I think there's a few tools that are worth getting for the job, such as a tape measure
Yeah,
to
tape measure. Sorry, for body composition, it's definitely worth getting an idea on that, weighing yourself, and I think a heart rate monitor is well worth the investment.
Yeah.
So you can really get some clear feedback from the bike.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget to tune in to the months ahead where Alan and myself are going to be going through each of those videos in detail. For now, if you want to see some more pro videos, there's a great one with Ollie Wilkins, 1,000 foot dead here, where we put a bulletproof vest on him to see the impacts of increased weight on your bike. Like I said, leave your comments below. I'm sure Alan will be only too happy to answer those questions. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and yeah, don't forget to subscribe to eMBN.